Welcome to Good Game, I'm Hex.
And I'm Bajo.
There's something deeply satisfying about sitting alone in the dark and being scared till our hair stands on end, isn't there, Bajo?
Yes, it's awful and great at the same time. And this week we see if 5 nights at Freddy's can send some chills up our spines.
Also this week we cast spells aplenty in Lichdom Battlemage.
And we spend some good old-fashioned quality time with the family in The Sims 4.
And we are going to attempt to tackle the ongoing issue that is Gamergate in this week's Ask Good Game. But before all that, can you name the game for this week?
Hex, is there anything scarier than an evil murdering puppet?
Well, yes, 4 evil murdering puppets.
Oh, hey, you're doing great. Most people don't last this long. I mean, you know, they usually move on to other things by now. I'm not implying that they died. That's not what I meant. Anyway, I better not take up too much of your time. Things are getting real tonight.
5 Nights at Freddy's is a survival horror game with the unique twist of being mostly point and click. You play the security guard in a pizza restaurant that has a bit of a problem. Its life-size animatronic mascots like to roam about at night and kill things. And by things, I mean you.
You need to make it through 5 night shifts. To stay alive, you flick between different security camera feeds in the hope of catching the puppets on the prowl. You need to manually shut the 2 doors to your room to keep them at bay, but you can't leave these doors shut for long because they drain power from the restaurant's generator. And when the power goes out, so do the lights.
I actually found this more disturbing than the recent PT demo that we played, and this hasn't even got half those production values, but it's just those eyeballs, Hex. Big murderous googly eyes.
Yeah, this really targets those childhood fears of old worn-out dolls coming to life.
To eat your face. It's no wonder there's been a gazillion Let's Plays of this game already, because it's loaded with jump scares. You're in a permanent state of tension, because you can't keep an eye on everything at once, and you inevitably get sprung at some point. And of course, copping a jump scare means it's already too late. You're dead. And it's all the tension of trying to avoid one that makes this game so effective.
It's clever how managing that one resource, your electricity level, has been made so stressful. It's a constant balancing act, juggling your use of the cameras, the lights in the hallways, the security doors. As you watch the power drain and the clock tick to the safety of 6 AM, you're not always sure you're gonna make it, and the shifts only get harder as the puppets become more active. That fox that runs down the hallway will have you fumbling for the door.
I do not like that fox. 5 Nights at Freddy's was created by lone developer Scott Cawthon. So for a one-person effort, it's pretty impressive, even if it does look a bit like a PC game unearthed from the 1990s. It's a 200 megabyte download for a small price. It's $5, and that feels about right for what you get out of it. I certainly wouldn't want to pay any more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. A fun idea that's executed well, but has a pretty short lifespan. By about the 3rd night, once I'd seen the same leering poses in the security cams a few too many times, the thrill sort of wore off and I was impatient to see what was at the end of it all.
Yeah, it does wear thin pretty quickly, and I think that's because it never really evolves past that mechanic of checking cameras and shutting doors. I'd love to see a more fleshed out version of this game with just a bit more to do. Still, if you like spooky scares, this might be for you. I'm giving it 7.
It's a 6 from me. And now it's time for Goose with the news.
Here's what's making news this week. The upcoming film based on the 2005 PlayStation classic Shadow of the Colossus has been assigned a director. Andre Muschietti, who made a name for himself with last year's ghoulish thriller Mama, has taken the helm.
You can't do that.
Early phase production on the film commenced in 2009, but there's still no word on casting or an expected release date. PopCap Games co-founder John Vici has left the studio. Vici, along with Jason Kapalka and Brian Fiete, founded the Peggle and Plants vs. Zombies studio back in 2000. After almost 15 years with the company, he's decided to move on to more altruistic pursuits, exploring environmental and social justice issues. A series of trademark filings suggest that Warner Bros. Is preparing to launch a digital games platform called WB Play. At the time of reporting, Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment has made no official statement and details remain unclear. However, a job listing for Warner Bros. Entertainment Group points towards WB Play being a digital distribution platform. And that's all the news for this week.
Thanks, Goose. Lichdom Battlemage is an action RPG from independent developer Xaviant Studios.
This first-person caster aims to pull the mage out of the chorus line and thrust them into the front line.
Potential here.
The city of Dravassa has fallen to the demon-worshipping cult Malthus. After their leader, Count Shax, destroys your life and leaves you for dead, a mysterious old sorcerer comes to town and equips you for revenge.
What are these things? They are my gift to you.
With your braces of power, you become the Dragon, an immortal mage with the power to control arcane magic.
What? Come on, you can't give me all this power and just leave.
You can play as a male or female character, each of whom has a pleasantly familiar voice.
Yes, there's voice work from our favourite shepherd, Jennifer Hale, and also Troy Baker, who's best known for his work as Joel in The Last of Us, and of course Booker from Bioshock Infinite. He voices the male lead.
Star power extravaganza.
Who the...
Well, you're not the prey I was hoping for.
Both are wonderfully characterized and unsurprisingly deliver stellar performances.
You don't look like a cultist.
Roth sent me to scout your path. He calls me your griffin. It looks like you could use the help.
Why am I supposed to trust you, huh?
You're not the only one who hates Shax Zero.
And no matter who you choose, you'll get to hear them both work their magic.
Yeah, magic.
Throughout the entire game, because whoever you don't choose becomes your shape-shifting scout and follows you on your adventure.
Yes, they have some wonderfully chummy interactions, don't they?
What got you this time?
An entire canyon full of undead. I think Shax knows we're here.
Yes, your companion is great company until you get into combat where they become conveniently preoccupied.
Hey, Griffin, feel free to pitch in! Griffin! Damn it!
Let's talk about the combat, which is a bit complex, so bear with us.
Yes, there are 3 different types of combat abilities that you can perform. Left click fires your main single target attack, and holding left and right mouse buttons triggers AoE blasts.
The right mouse is your defensive button. Holding it will mute some of the damage coming your way. And a well-timed block will launch a counter which does critical damage to all enemies in front of you. A clever addition, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's no melee, so it's nice to have some way of fighting back when enemies are all up in your mage's grill. You've also got a dash to help you zip out of dangerous situations.
Then you have different arcane powers to play with. You start off with the typical magic fare: fire, ice, and lightning. But over time, you do start to unlock more interesting powers.
My favourite is that plague one. You infect your enemies, and when they die, little parasites burst out of them to help you take out remaining enemies. It's gross. And awesome.
There are a few dud ones though, and that fire and ice combo is just so overpowered, you end up just using that mostly and hot swapping the third one simply because you can. I tinkered with the other elements, but I just found they weren't as effective.
I disagree. I think this game is actually at its best once you start putting time and thought into those attack combos and really making the most of the advantages of each magic type.
Yeah, just freeze and blast all day. That does the job. Attack combos are called synergies and are a good way of dealing extra damage. For example, a frozen enemy takes double critical damage from fire. The song of ice and fire continues.
Even if you do decide to be boring and just stick with 2 elements, you'll constantly be cycling through new spells, and this is where the combat becomes truly complex. Spellcrafting.
Indeed. By destroying crates and killing enemies, you collect 2 different classes of items: shapes and augments. These can be combined in the crafting menu to form new, more powerful spells.
Shapes define what kind of spell you'll cast. For instance, a lobbed or stream attack. And applied augments tune your attack with different bonuses, such as increased strength or casting negative statuses on enemies. And the game becomes very much about getting the best spell fragments you can in order to create epic magics. By reaching checkpoints in levels, you increase the rarity of dropped items to a maximum of 5. When you die, the counter resets.
Considering you're an immortal being, this was such a great way to add consequence for dying. That said, I felt like most of my deaths were pretty cheap. Some enemy attacks are poorly telegraphed and just do crazy amounts of damage.
Yeah, I do think the enemies are really well designed though.
You can't hide from me!
There's a nice variety of melee and ranged attackers, and some are higher ranking with interesting status buffs. There is a sense of chaos to each encounter, and the game does a really good job of actually making you feel powerful when you win.
I did like the enemies from a visual standpoint, such as the necromancer witches. They're terrifying up close and move with such an unnerving grace. Plus, giant crab boss.
Giant crabs are making a comeback. I think all the animations and effects are great, and I like that your hands are always up for some reason.
Without a weapon, it looks a bit silly, especially in the conversations.
Still makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, mine too.
What, you mean this?
Yeah, I feel like this would only be specific conversations this would work for, such as, I'm going jewelry shopping tomorrow.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just going to the supermarket. I might just pick and choose
really?
the fruits and the vegetables, see what takes my fancy.
I'm testing out an assortment of pianos tomorrow.
I'm getting my nails done.
I'm massaging strangers on the bus tomorrow. As I walk past. That kind of thing.
That was the creepiest damn thing I've ever seen.
Watch yourself. For all we know, he can hear us.
Oh yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
This game does make good use of CryEngine 3. Each level has some wonderfully designed areas. And I was blown away by that frozen maelstrom.
Yeah, and that desert getting pelted by falling meteorites. Very cool.
It's just a shame that those points of interest were so far apart. I thought the levels were painfully linear. You just end up wandering through tunnel after tunnel in what could only be an effort to extend the game's duration. I think I spent about 6 hours in that snow area.
Yeah, that was my main concern with this game, actually.
Don't run!
As much fun as I was having with the combat, getting stuck in the same zones, fighting the same enemies for hours on end was tedious work.
They did try to counter that tedium with some side path distractions, though. Like the wave mode battles, which yield a nice big loot payoff on completion. They're nice and self-contained, but really they are just more of the same.
Yeah, what they really needed to do was just trim all of that fat to improve the pacing of the main progression. What are you going to give it, Bajo?
I really wanted to like this game. But for me, there was just too much repetition in the combat and the scenery, and that got in the way of the fun a bit, so I'm giving it 6.5.
I actually thought that the mechanics of this game were fantastic, particularly that deep spellcrafting system, and it was so good to have Jennifer Hale's reassuring voice back in my life, so I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
Right, we've got a pretty big email to answer at the Ask Good Game desk, Hex, shall we?
Yeah. Okay, well, this week's question is from Hugh, and it's a doozy. Hello both. I'm writing regarding #Gamergate controversy that has engulfed the global gaming community in recent weeks. Taking place across millions of blogs, Twitter accounts and Facebook pages, reported almost all game sites internationally, as well as news and commentary outlets including Guardian, Al Jazeera, Forbes and Overland, it's disappointing there has been no discussion of this important game story from Good Game over the 3 weeks that it has developed. Now featuring in ABC Online and The Roast, the outward appearance is that Good Game is making its statement by not reporting the story. Given Good Game's significant voice in the Australian gaming community, a community the ABC has helped foster and shape over the last 7 years, I feel the program has an obligation to not only cover this story, but perhaps more importantly to unreservedly denounce the harassment, death threats, abuse, sexism and xenophobia that has gathered around Gamergate # in recent weeks. These toxic attitudes inflict critical damage to the development of games and play, and the great diversity of people who discuss, create, and enjoy them. Very best regards, Hugh. Well, I guess we should start off by saying we're totally with you, Hugh, and that we unequivocally denounce all of the hatred and harassment that has been surrounding this issue. I mean, any kind of abusive behaviour has no place anywhere in the world, and it hurts to see so much of it in our community.
Absolutely. Gamergate, as it's being called, has sparked discussions on some very serious issues, which all deserve to be talked about, but it's hard to have a real discussion about them as an industry and community when people don't treat each other with respect. As for what it's all about, well, it's a big, complex timeline, but we'll break it down as much as we can here.
Gamergate began around a month ago with allegations of sex affairs and corruption between an independent game developer and some gaming journalists. This led to serious harassment of the developer and sparked a fierce debate online and in the media.
Then, in an unrelated move, feminist game critic Anita Sarkeesian released her latest video analysing the portrayal of women in video games. She then endured some vicious harassment, even forcing her to move out of her home. Also, there were a few developers and gaming journalists who posted some rather hateful comments about their gaming audience.
Yes, however, many high-profile developers also proceeded to sign an open letter expressing that everyone, no matter what gender or sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion or disability, has the right to play games, criticise games, and make games without getting harassed or threatened.
The letter also urged people to take a stand against hateful and harassing speech and encourage the reporting and flagging of these issues using available social media tools.
Then, with many articles and blog posts, the conversation also steered towards the use of the term gamer itself and whether or not it's something that's necessary as an identity. And all of these issues have fallen under the Gamergate umbrella, making it more problematic to try and resolve, especially since there's so much online noise across so many different forums and social media threads.
Yes, it gets cloudy and loud, especially when people feel like they don't have a voice or aren't being heard. And that's the biggest problem with Gamergate. People are concerned about the lack of transparency and trust between PR, gaming journalists, and developers. It doesn't help when some sites even took to disabling comments and locking off threads, which just makes people even more upset.
At the core of all this are a variety of important issues that do need to be scrutinised and discussed. They range from corruption to transparency to equality and female representation in the industry and in games. But some of these issues we've already visited on the show and will no doubt visit again.
Yes, and if there's one thing we've learned from working on this show and meeting so many of you over the years, is that games really are for everyone. Each convention we go to, every person we meet who plays games, you all represent a very full and colourful spectrum that can't easily be labelled.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful industry and community to be in, and so that's why it's so painful to see it in this kind of anger and turmoil. The story is still developing, and there's plenty out there to read about if you're interested. Time and perspective are needed to solve this, and it'll no doubt lead to some new wisdom and hopefully, Bajo, some change for good. Thank you, Hugh, for encouraging us to comment on it, but for now, it's you review time. Okay, well, let's lighten the mood a bit and see what everyone thought of Oddworld New and Tasty. Most of you seem to enjoy it, like Space Bondy here, who wrote, "Took me way back to when farts were funny. What am I saying? Farts are always funny." 8 stars.
Harry, meanwhile, was slightly less enthused about the fart, but still enjoyed it, saying, "This is the same as the first game, but that makes it good. The only thing I kind of had a problem was the farts, as I heard so many in South Park The Stick of Truth and Tomodachi Life."
Password? Okay, you can pass.
9 stars. You can get desensitized to farts over time.
It's a fart overload. Likewise, Undefined here had nothing but kind words to say, although I'm not sure they've quite got the concept of how scoring works, saying, "This is my most favourite game ever, along with all the other Oddworld games." 1.5 stars.
If you'd like to contribute and leave your own review, you can do so on our website or the Good Game app. For over 14 years, the Sims series has let us toy and tinker with virtual lives.
And now The Sims 4 has arrived, but does it let us live out our dreams or is it a living nightmare? For those who may have never heard of The Sims, there's no defined end or way to play. You basically just watch some people and interfere with them as you see fit.
Aspa.
You can try and help them achieve their aspirations and dreams, Get promotions, start families and that kind of thing. Or you can just torment them and make them pee themselves a lot. It's really up to you.
Oh, Narga, Grobe!
Now, Bajo, I've never really been a huge fan of The Sims. The idea of it just doesn't really grab me. I love the city builders, and I kind of liked Sims Medieval since there seems to be a bit more purpose and the setting was great. But this all just kind of feels a bit menial and pointless.
But Hex, such is life. Who knows what the point of it all is?
Well, yeah, but I like games to take me to amazing new worlds and tell interesting stories, not make me cook and clean and fix toilets and then go to work so I can afford a better fridge.
Well, that's one side of the game. What I play The Sims for is to mess with people's lives.
Yeah, and I did come to this with an open mind, as always, but I just wanted to put that out there.
What I really like to do is create a whole bunch of characters which are all named after my friends and see which of them have babies together. And I know a lot of people really enjoy the architectural side of things, going about building and designing their dream homes. I'm always surprised at how much the Sims series manages to tap into my capitalistic and voyeuristic desires.
Well, straight up, I think we should acknowledge the elephant in the room, or lack of elephants, as the case may be.
Yeah, Sims 4 seems to have removed more stuff than it's put in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few key things missing that people are really upset over. Things like toddlers, pools, story progression, and the open world that was introduced in The Sims 3.
There's a few things that I didn't really miss, such as toddlers. But don't you dare take away my sexy pool parties. The best you can do now is stand around a small pond.
And it seems like a huge step back to go from an open world to areas all closed off by loading screens.
Yes, but they have allowed you to move between different worlds now without losing progress. We recently spoke to the game's producer, Graham Nardone, about this.
Now, in the past, if you wanted to take your Sims between worlds, you would really be starting a new game with them. You'd lose a lot of the information about that Sim. You know, all the relationships they'd built up would go away. But in The Sims 4, it's entirely seamless and integrated. So if you want to move to another world, it's no problem. If you just want to visit some friends in another world, or go find a romantic relationship in another world, you can do that. If you're just going to go, visit the park in another world and just have a nice day with your Sims, it's all entirely possible, and it's very quick and easy to do. So, no more barriers really. It's the whole world. All of your content's available to explore at any time.
It is nice that you can do that now, but I don't see why it had to come at the expense of an open world. It just doesn't seem like a fair trade-off. You really lose that sense of community and place that an open world provided.
At least the loading screens are snappy, but I do agree it is a step backwards. However, not really a deal breaker for me personally. But I do think when that's combined with the fact that there's no story progression now, it really makes everything feel like segmented little boxes that don't really interact with each other.
Yeah, in The Sims 3, you could enable story progression so that when you weren't controlling a Sim, their lives still continued autonomously. They could get jobs, get married, and have kids and all that stuff. But that's gone now. Yeah,
it's basically been stripped right down to auto-aging. So when you're not controlling your Sim, they'll just grow old and die, but that's about it. It's sad to see that gone now because it gave the Sims a real sense of having their own lives, and that's kind of important for a life simulator.
I think what worries people is that The Sims has a long history of getting expansion pack after expansion pack. Which is fine, but not if they're going to start charging us for expansions that include features that we expected to be in the main game.
Yeah, and while it's not really fair for us to criticize stuff that they haven't put into the game, the cynical side of me thinks that maybe they've left stuff out to sell it to us later. And that may not be the case, but it is how I feel playing this game. And I think if they don't bring toddlers and pools back as free DLC, then there'll be a lot of fans out there who spit the proverbial dummy. But let's talk about what they have included.
Yeah, so the first thing you'll notice is that the Creator Sim tool is a lot more fluid and easy to use. It lets you pull and push on just about every part of your Sim to get them looking exactly how you want. Although the Creator Style tool is gone, so your fashion options are pretty limited for now, which is a shame.
Oh, hey.
It's a much nicer way to create a model, isn't it, rather than just a bunch of sliders. It's kind of like sculpting a piece of clay. Or a bit like messing with Mario's face in the Mario 64 start screen. The best part is, if you like making weird, ugly, and crazy-looking characters, The Sims 4 is the perfect place to do it. Meet Clown Guy. Look at that strut. Oh my. But I settled with a guy who has a small head, a big body, fat thighs, thin calves, and tiny feet. And he was blue, and also insane.
I have to say, Bajo, you've really outdone yourself this time.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Now, there are also emotional states that your Sims get in. So Sims will get angry after a bad day at work, or embarrassed by an awkward conversation. They also get happy if they do things that they love.
Open the door!
Yes! And these all affect how they interact with other Sims and how they perform at various tasks.
They also offer up little objectives and conversation options for your Sim to do. So they might want to call a friend or make a self-deprecating joke if they get embarrassed.
Bad and grubby.
And if you do the objectives, you earn some special points that you can spend on traits and potions to give your Sim various buffs.
It adds a nice little bit of complexity to a Sim's character and interactions, and it's good to have those little goals to work towards. But overall, I don't think the emotional states really added a lot to the core experience of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it adds a nice layer, but it's hardly revolutionary, is it?
No. But one thing that was much more welcome is the ability for Sims to multitask. So, for example, a Sim can be watching TV or having a meal and still carry on a conversation with other Sims.
Yeah, it definitely makes them feel more genuine and alive rather than just an automaton that goes from one task to the next. Though I found it a bit annoying how they'll just keep doing some tasks forever unless you tell them to stop.
Yeah, but also I think now if you just leave them to their own devices, they are better at looking after themselves and just living out their lives. They go to work on time, eat, clean up, and all that stuff, so you don't have to micromanage them so much. But if you tell them to maybe practice a skill or play a video game, yes, they will do that at the expense of everything else. They just sit there starving and peeing themselves and missing work until you intervene. Though I suppose we've all been there at some point, haven't we?
Yeah, well, speak for yourself. For me, I think the best improvements are in the build mode. I liked how you can simply click on what part of the house you want to build, or just do a search for them. It makes it so easy to find what you want.
And now there's pre-built, fully furnished rooms you can just plonk down if you can't be bothered building things yourself. It's also possible to edit wall height and foundation height to give architects a few more options.
It would have been nice though if your foundation height wasn't applied to your entire house so that you could do split level houses, for example.
Yes, that would be a nice addition. And there's no garages or basements either, and of course no pools, but we should wrap this up. Final thoughts, Hex?
I think it's a big step back for this series. I mean, as someone who doesn't really enjoy the basics of this game, there wasn't a lot here to change my mind. To be honest, I found it a bit dull, so I'm giving it 5.
Yes, well, the developers have said they needed to pick which features to focus on during development. So obviously they couldn't put everything that was in Sims 3 and all of its expansions into this game. We do know that new features will come in time, but I don't think what they've put into this game makes up for what they've taken out of it. And it's hard to recommend Sims 4 next to Sims 3, which is so fully featured. The best part about it is the Sims themselves do feel more real, and that's a pretty big bonus. So I'm gonna give it 7 out of 10.
Oh, that was...
So, did you name the game for this week? No! Creepy wizard spirit fingers away from me.
It was The Pilgrim's Progress from 2006. Available on PC, you took control of a young boy named Christian, who journeys from his unfortunately named hometown, the City of Destruction, and eventually reaches your ultimate destination, the Celestial City. The game was heavily inspired by the Christian story of the same name, written by John Bunyan and released in 1678. And it's unnamed the game because it was made by Scott Cawthon, the same developer behind this week's Five Nights at Freddy's.
Wow, 2 very different games there.
A diverse fellow. Next week on the show, we have a AAA game to review.
No!
Yes, it has been a while. After a lifetime of publicity, alphas and teasers, finally, our destiny has arrived. With the game called Destiny.
We also get Frantic in Velocity 2X.
And over on Spawn Point on ABC3 this weekend, we have a look at Naruto Shippuden... Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Revolution!
Snappy title. Until next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Gonna
do a marionette puppet show.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna take out an entire army of ants. Ant genocide. Now I feel sad.